Before the Echo is brought to you by ASIO Outdoor Gear, ASIO Gear, and Stealth Outdoors. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Hope everybody's doing good tonight. We're starting a few minutes early just because we could. Johnny got out of the stand early, and not early on time. You got to service early.
Yeah.
So, you're in Ohio right now, huh?
Yeah, we're hunting Ohio. The weather's been warm.
Yep.
But I don't mind it. I just kind of think where it'll be to stay cool.
Yeah.
Not way up on a mountain for sure. You're not going to find them up 400-foot elevation on a ridge. So kind of helps. When it gets a little cooler, they could be up there. But now I kind of like that warm weather. They bed a lot, through the day and, before dark that last hour. So you can really catch them being active.
You guys see anything tonight?
No, the wind was thermals kind of wasn't going directly downhill, like perpendicular to the top of the lines. It was kind of like angling across because it kind of like a fun, like, the stream was kind of flowing. It's kind of not straight downhill. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I wanted to kind of go straight downhill, but it was kind of angling on it like a 45 to the top of the lines to where.
Yeah, kind of following the lines.
Yeah, kind of. So we actually got down. We were in a little drainage ditch ourselves. We actually, you got some ground thermals and air thermals. So we just like went down the hill 30 yards and just sat in the ditch. You know what I mean? And it's so calm. It just lays there or just goes straight down the hill. So it was a spot I just found. So this buck, man, he's particular about his scrapes. He just like probably about the size of a car hood, but you don't have a leaf in them. Boy, they're clean. There was two of them there. And it like he must have pawed there for like minutes just to get I was gonna just fill him in with leaves just to piss him off, So
yeah.
You have to come out again. So
what do you look for in Ohio over there? Because I'm probably gonna go to Ohio sometime in November this year.
Yeah, definitely acorns. It looks like so I had a camera lower elevation on his that was a north slope anyways, and found some black oaks that started falling in like second week of September, and I dropped the camera there. Then I pulled it yesterday. I had like 2 does and like 10 pictures in 2 to 3 weeks. And here higher elevation, only maybe 40, 50 feet elevation up the hill, there was a white oak. And that's where turkey's been in there, got him pretty much cleaned up. But when I dropped that camera a few weeks ago, lower elevation, I almost walked up because I was hunted that spot before to check. And he never even never on my lower camera. And so I put one up higher and we hunted up higher. But the white oaks, a lot of them will be picked over by the time you get there. But there's a good crop this area, kind of black oaks. So, but yeah, you can be if you're 10 feet away, you might as well be a mile away. In situations sometimes like that, just he never was low, and I did grab that camera, do a little circle, and I'm like, oh man, he was up higher.
Dang.
And I feel like if we were here a week or so earlier in the season, I would have pulled my camera and did that little circle, and chances are, might have caught him. I mean, we just got here, and that was our first night, but you're getting into the time of year where it's, we're on the fringe of a lot of hunters coming into the woods. So
yeah,
he's
true.
Probably acting a little bit nocturnal in that area. So I think it's a big deer, but his scrapes are clean. I never seen nothing like it. Like there's not a leaf. Like he didn't just paw how they do like in a V, kind of like this with their toes.
Yep.
It's probably 3 to 4 feet wide, and he just like, I feel like he just kept cleaning the leaf. Like I've never seen, like he just kept, so every leaf was out of it. There was 2 of them right there.
Sounds like my buddy Global was in there today before making a mock scrape on you.
I could have been.
No.
It was almost like he took a rake and he just like cleaned,
Yeah.
like not like a deep aggression, like dug down in like it was almost like he just the top. He just I could see him just keep like maybe for 3 minutes, just like taking every leaf out of it. But
Like he
so
had some OCD or something.
that's what I think so. I told Harry, I said we should build him in, piss him off, make him clean it back out.
Oh, that's funny.
So,
Dude, it is like, and I am no hill country expert. We have a lot of hill country and I hunt a lot, but I'm still like, I just feel like hill country, like you said, there's so many factors in there. And just like this year, I had the same exact scenario, which we don't have any white oaks falling here. Like it's few and far between. But I noticed this year, I've learned a lot about black oaks because we've also have quite a few black oaks and they seem to like those, but maybe I don't think they like them as much as white oaks, but if they're available, I think that's what they're hitting this year around here.
yeah.
And I had this particular hub that I went and there was a scrape in it and I had a camera over it. And it was like you told the exact same story I had happened to me. I went in and checked that camera thinking, man, there could be a giant on this one. And I got there and there was like a handful of does on it. And this was, it's been out there for a couple months and a couple of small bucks, nothing what I was expecting. And I thought to myself on that hunt, I'm like, I'm just going to circle around to go to the next hub and see what it looks like. Well, I was circling around to go to the next hub to go up to the mouth to kind of just scout that out. And I looked up when I got out of that hub that had that camera, I kind of looked over to my right to the west, and I saw some white oaks up there, which there's white oaks everywhere. But I'm like, man, I saw a squirrel and stuff. I'm like, man, maybe them are falling. Yeah. And they were probably, I don't know, elevation wise, maybe 100 feet higher than where I was. And I started sneaking up there, and I'm not kidding you. The first thing I saw when I got up there is a buck turn like this, and I saw a rack up there. Yeah. I was like, oh man. And I just sat there and waited. And then they heard me, but they couldn't smell me or I don't think they saw me after they heard me, because I think I saw them before they saw me. And the one just kept looking down my way, but he never would commit to like spooking. And finally he just walked kind of back towards the throat of the hub. And then all of a sudden I saw another buck up there. And I'm like, gosh, dang, I was just barely off, But
kind of the situation I was down lower, and then went up the hill there to them. Yeah. But hopefully in this area, I've had a fair amount of cameras stolen over the years. But I think thieves come in. Them hunters usually show up maybe third week of October. So nobody's been parking there. I always check the parking spots. And I don't actually park in a parking spot. I park down the road. As soon as you park there, it's like, they're up there listening. Especially tonight, it was really calm, so we'll see what happens. I guess it's going to be here 3 days and, probably head back home. So
do you like hunting this time of year versus like that late October rut time? Just because of the people?
Yeah, like I'm starting to lean more toward early season just for that reason. Just the guys are going to come in later in October and in November, and it's just food is king. Then if some of these areas I hunt here, there's no acorns. They could move miles, to make some ag or something, and not many deer there. But last year was a great white oak crop. This year's mild. This year good black oak. But there's been years in chestnut, but there's been years like and it's different every year. There's been a couple of years with just nothing dead. I wouldn't even hunt. I'd move myself,
Yeah.
But it's weird. There's this one white oak here by my camp that every year it's just along the road has acorns. Every year it's like right along the road. I check it. Oh, it's a good white oak here. Check it. Then I go hike in the woods. There's no acorns. And then down the road from that white oak, there's another one. It never has acorns, maybe a few. But this one, I think 5 years straight it had acorns on it. And I would see it like in September. I'm like, yes, it's a good year for white oaks. And I go hike through the woods. I don't find any. But this one tree, I don't know. And I got one back home in my house. I got a white oak in my yard and 2 down at the beginning of my driveway. Them 2 beginning of my driveway barely fall. And the one closer to my house falls more often.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, and there's no rhyme or reason. You just got
people always say that they rotate years like acorns do, and they do to some extent. But yeah, it's like except for, I don't know about you, but chestnut oaks around here every year. It seems like there's always a bunch of chestnut oaks around here.
Well, down here, there was a few years that they didn't have any. There was some last year and the year before, but just like I catch these deer in the middle of September, like most of the pitchers going through these hardwoods, their nose down, because they're doing the same thing as us. They're trying to find where that mast is. They don't know where it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'll start finding, like I found his rubs where there was white oaks last year, further up the hollow, 400 yards. And he rubbed that up, and I guarantee he ain't been back maybe once or twice, but that's where, you know, last year the food was, and he was still made a rub there. But, you know, these couple white oaks I found, I don't think I had him last year. I ain't finding any old caps on the ground, but there's a few there, and he found them, and he's hanging out right there. But, you know, a lot of it's just putting some miles on to find where there's fresh acorns.
Yeah.
You know, find some turkey sign and deer shit. So
yep, that's all you can do. Keep boots on the ground till you find them.
Yeah.
You want to talk about this West Virginia buck you killed?
Yeah. Let's talk about it. We're gonna start. Go ahead.
So, Johnny, like, you live in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
So, like, where do you hunt every year? You seem like you get around quite a bit.
No, I don't hunt around Pittsburgh. I quit hunting around just south of, not in town, but south of Pittsburgh, you know, half hour or so. But that's where I grew up and I hunted. But just, man, I got to the point where as they took more of the forest or whatever and built more houses, I started getting into hunting near houses, urban or whatever like that. And I did that, you know, a little bit. And then I just wanted to be out, like, where nothing, like, I guess out in the wild, you know, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, like all my hunting's traveling, you know, even my place in PA, northern PA is almost 3 hours. I'm at 5 hours where I'm at here. You know, West Virginia's a little over an hour. But I just need to find little places that are more wild, you know, like bass. But the West Virginia, I want to go back about 25 years. And, man, I've been recently thinking about how it evolved hunting back then. And when I was, I don't know, 20, 18, 19, you know, and how me and my buddies would hunt and just grab your bow and a stand and go. But probably 25 years ago, someone told us about this piece of public land, West Virginia. And we headed out there. Me and my buddies just getting a pickup truck, and it was probably on a notepad, a piece of scribbled down. It wasn't like a phone. Someone give you directions or a waypoint. Yeah. Here, you go down this route, make right, go down left, and like we went to this piece of public land, and maybe 3 or 4 of us in a single cab F-150, and jump out, and you just take your lock on, or I had the loggy bayou with the metal strap. Boy, I was a cat's meow back then, you know. And you just run up in the woods. No maps, no topo, no nothing. Like, you've seen yellow markers that, you know, indicate you're on the public and, you know, the directions you had. So that was it. There was no pre-scouting, early season, late season. There was no cameras. It was just, you run up. And so I remember we would scatter up in the woods, get maybe 3, you know, probably end of October. So we get there maybe 2 or 3 and we just take off. I'm going this way. I'll go this way. And my buddy ended up hitting a deer. Meet at the truck at dark. That's it. There's no phone, no nothing, you know, meet at the truck. So we get down to the truck and my buddy's like, I got one, you know, and if it was a buck, we shot it, you know, spike force, anything. We didn't care. Oh yeah, we're all like pumped up, and we decided to run to town and get something to drink and come back and look for him with our flashlights. He's like, "Yeah, I left my bow up in a stand and my stand there." I'm like, "What? All right, whatever." Like he got excited, just left. Wanted to keep in the woods. So we come back. We couldn't even find his stand. There's no icon for a stand. There's no Spartan Forge. So
Right.
we're just randomly looking up in a tree for a tree stand with his bow hanging in it. Somehow I just walked some deer trails, found some blood, and I think maybe it was a high lung hit, kind of. But last year, 2022, early 2022, like maybe February, March, I drove down there, and I remember the gravel road we went up. Um, you couldn't even make it up the road. It connected like two state roads. Maybe it was like a gravel road that went through the state land, and they quit maintaining it, and it was all grown over, and there was ruts, and they would just take four-wheelers and razors up there. But I remember on the left side there was a old dairy farm that was grown up into like a briar field 25 years ago, and the old timer, we stopped and talked to him. He let us shoot deer, and they were like rabbits in them briar fields. We just push them and shoot them. But what the heck, I always go anymore and reminisce to these places. And I went back last year, or 2022, early like March, and that guy's briar patch was a forest now. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, wow, 25. You're like, wow, because you got it ingrained in your head how it was. So I did a hike. I seen someone shed hunting. Someone else. I seen some good rubs. So now that with Spartan Forge, I seen there was another hunk of land. So I went and checked that out. Did a big circle there, and you start to, after so many years, you pick up where you need to be or where the deer are. So I ended up shooting a deer down there last year. There was a cut in the deer. The biggest deer in that area is like high 20s, 30, which is great. I'm happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
But fast forward to this year, I had gone back kind of like a northeast facing ridge, and the north side was cut probably maybe 5-6 years old, and I guess that would be the northwest, and then the opposite side was some open timber, and so I had my buck I shot last year coming out of that cut. But this year there was actually acorns. So since they cut all the timber on the northwest, side of that ridge, um, these deer didn't have any acorns in that area. So on the ridge I was on had oak trees. No acorns last year. So anyways, I went in this year, August, and another thing that I hiked for 45 minutes, 40 minutes to get to this spot. I walked through, like I blazed through so much land because I know no one's going. I do find myself hunting now a lot by parking lots and roads, but you could still, like when I was young, I wanted to get way back. You could still
Mm-hmm.
find good hunting way back away from it. And I would, start the trail hiking back my 40 minutes, and there's boot tracks, beat up four-wheeler tracks, maybe locals driving up there. Further I got, after about 20, 30 minutes, nothing, It's like, ain't nobody coming back here. It was 80 degrees. So, yeah, the northwest side there of that ridge was cut, and they were coming out of there, and then the ridge itself had some oaks on it. And like I said, I was there mid-August, and I just hung a camera on the edge of that cut. I've actually put the camera where I shot my deer last year. So the ridge is kind of like goes this way, and this is the cut side. And there's actually a little, like, and I talked earlier about like ground thermals, like there's a little draw going down into that cut. You could barely see it on Spartan Forge. You stand there and you look, like when stuff settles and falls, it's calm. Like that's where a buck's going to have his nose down and pick up scent, So I put a camera right there to catch him coming up out of that cut. And further down the ridge, there was a single oak, So there was the spot I shot my buck last year, about 80 yards, a single oak, and then further out the ridge was a clump of oaks. So I put a camera where I shot my deer. I skipped that single oak and I put the camera down on a clump of oaks, almost on the point. And so that was mid-August. So I went in there mid-September. I went in there a hot day, almost coming up out of that cut, and grabbed my camera where that little low spot going into that cut. I had a nice 10, probably, I don't know, high 20s, 30 maybe for that area, good 10. He was coming in and out of that cut right there. And I walked down to check the camera at the point, probably 150 yards, where the oaks were at. And I knew halfway between pretty much was a single oak. And so I grabbed the camera where I shot my deer coming out of that cut last year. And I was walking, it was noon, and I was walking toward them clump of oaks, but in between is that single oak. And as I'm getting closer, I'm just watching. And there was that 9, the one I shot. He was under that single oak eating. Like, he wouldn't come up for air. Like, noon, no one bothers him. No one's back here. September 17th, he'd never seen any danger. And that's when I think I sent you the picture. I took a video of him right then, you know. So I went down. He ended up feeding off. I went down and checked them other oaks. They weren't falling yet. Not at all. They were loaded. I look up in a tree and see loaded, and there was oodles of them, you know. But that one single oak was falling. I'm like, well, I'll leave my camera down at this clump of oaks. And I had the one where, you know, I left the one where I shot my deer last year. So I got out of there, and you know, fast forward to the season, it was October 2nd. I went in there, and since it was a northeast ridge, I remember it was kind of northeast, and there was an east wind that was blowing into that cut, and that wasn't now last year that wasn't good because they were coming up out of that cut and onto the ridge where them oaks are and stuff. So I went and hunted anyways, but I stayed back. I figured I walked over to that single oak, and there was acorns on the ground everywhere. So I figured he'd probably be still feeding on that single oak, but the wind was blowing in the cut. Like, here's the single oak, 50 yards was the cut, and the wind's blowing, east wind blowing in that cut, crossing that ridge. And I said, I can't hunt there. So I stayed 80 yards back, almost where I shot my buck last year. And I got up in a tree. I think it was 80 degrees. And it was actually a steep hill where that cut was, where my wind was blowing, and it was dropped off steep. So I figured they weren't bedding there. It was further down toward that oak. It was more gradual where that cut was. I figured that's where they were coming out of. And that's where I, you know, figured that one that I shot last year, I kind of knew where they were. So my wind was blowing into that cut, but it was a real steep hill, and I felt safe that my wind was blowing that way. So I watched that single oak. I mean, I got up in a tree. We got up in a tree. It was probably 5 o'clock, and I could see that single oak about 80 yards away, 90, somewhere in that range. And there was a doe. It came, but it didn't come out of that cut. So that ridge is kind of, it drops off the opposite side. So it's kind of northeast ridge. So like the east, south side of that ridge is really steep. It drops down like this, you know, and then here's the cut, and it's gradual over here. So these deer, the doe, come up out of that steep ridge, you know, under that steep parallel hillside. So it fed under them oaks, and then that buck, the 9-point, the one I shot, he come up there, and a couple does, they all come up, and they didn't come out of that cut. But here it was 80 degrees, and there was a creek down over that hillside, and there was a bench I could see on Spartan Forge. They were laying down there because it was so hot near that creek and on that hillside, and it was shady and cool. That sun was beating that cut up to where them deer, if it was cooler temperatures, they would have been in that cut and coming, using the wind, the east wind, coming out and feeding on that oak. So we sat back and watched them. I said, tomorrow night, we're just going to get right by that oak, and we'll just let our wind blow in that cut. I mean, and it was good bedding, gradual. I said, we're taking a chance that they're down over this steep hillside because it's another 80-degree day. And it was as close as I'll ever get to literally having a deer tied to a tree, because I said that before we went in. I said, this deer is coming to this tree. And I actually ran down and checked that other clump of oaks. They're still not falling. I said, this tree is the hottest thing in town. There was 5-6 deer under it last night. So I said, let's let our wind blow in that cut. Get up in a tree. It's hot. We got up about little after 4, and we're only 30 yards from that oak, wind's blowing in a cut. But I felt pretty confident that they were going to come up over that hill again on that steep slope leading down to that creek. So a little button buck come up, fed around, and it was like 5. It left. And I looked at Harry. I said, he was here last night at 5:15. I'm like, he should be coming any minute, And I look, here he come right up over there, steep hill. And he come right to that oak. And so I had a window, an opening at, I don't know, 30. And I pulled back. Harry's like, oh, I got him, And he walked through the opening, and he got into there was leaves. I could barely see the deer. I should have let down, but I'm tough. I just hold it,
Yeah.
So I held it for a long time, and across I should just let down, but I held it a long time. Finally, he come out, and it was like 27 yards, and I hit low, quartering toward a little bit. I think I was holding so long that I just kind of dropped my bow arm, just like when I hit the trigger.
Yeah.
So Harry's like, you drilled him. I'm like, what? I thought it was low, like I grazed him or something. So the deer runs out and it stops. His tail was acting kind of funny. So I knocked another arrow, and I guessed 50. And I shot him in the shoulder, and he took off down the hill, And then we replayed the video, and yeah, it was low, man. Quartering toward, it wasn't a bad thing. But I was like, how was I that low? And that's the only thing I think. I held my bow, and I should have never. He was so calm. It was almost, when you have a good feeling a deer's there, but it's like I felt like this was I was more messed up because it was almost a sure thing. Like, this is going to happen. So I was really
you almost felt some pressure. Yeah.
I felt a lot of pressure because I'm like,
yeah,
this is a no-brainer. Like, John, this is like I say, he's tied to the streets. I think I felt more pressure. It wasn't like, this is a good spot. They're feeding here. Maybe I'll see him this evening. And you're just kind of calm. But I'm like, this is going to happen. I can't have to stop. It's going to happen. He's going to come through. And I'm like, there it is. I know. It was so it was almost too easy. You know what I mean?
Well, and then like on public land, that never happens. Like hardly ever.
It can't be this easy. It can't happen this easy. And like, there he is. I'm like, so I think I got a little fever. I ain't going to complain. That's why we hunt. So
yeah, sure.
So I did stick him in the shoulder, and he ran down the hill. But we gave him 5 hours, and we followed him. He never laid down, and it was that high hit that kept him bleeding, keeping us on his trail. But with the video, we went in, and it wasn't they call it a white line. It went in, but it was more stomach, not intestines, to where it's actually better. I mean, for the hunter, like, to find them,
Mm-hmm.
So we gave him 5 hours, and we followed him. Probably he just zigzagged down a hill, up, over, left, right. No rhyme or reason. Never laid down, probably because that high shoulder hit. He might have been in pain, and man, I hate doing that. Like, now that I'm older, like I feel more for these animals than when I was a younger person. Like, I just wanted to kill deer, and I didn't care.
Yeah.
I just love killing deer. But now I hate to see him suffer and this and that. And,
yeah.
As you age and it's different. You're different. But anyways, he kept moving. We followed him till 1 a.m. We really didn't lose blood, but I said, if we go 10 minutes without finding blood, let's just back out, So we would go like 6, 8 minutes. Well, oh, here he is. We find blood, and it was up high. He was rubbing against trees and limbs, and we were finding blood up high. So yeah, it ended up being 10 minutes went by. We didn't find blood. I said, well, let's get out of here. So I called a dog tracker. Well, that was 1 a.m. So the next morning, I had a guy that was supposed to come out early. Here, he couldn't make it. So another guy, Mike, he said, I'm working. I can get there at 4 o'clock. I'm like, and we actually went in and started looking for blood. And we were worried about hiking too much and putting too much of our scent, because the one guy said, try not to walk on the trail. I'm like, I don't know where the deer ran. How am I going to know not to walk on the trail,
Mm-hmm.
To cover up the deer scent? And it was dry out. So Mike came out, and his dog's name was Kipley. She was only 10 months old, a wire-haired pointer or something like that. So we took her to last blood, and so she went straight up the hill. That deer was going up the hill, and we actually hung back, and we could see where the keep rubbing on brush and leaving blood, about shoulder height. She went up over the hill and down the next hill, and she was yipping down there. And he said, man, I never heard her yip. So we kind of went down to where she was yipping, and he's looking for her. He's like, I never, she found a few deer. She never yipped. She was just quiet. But we went up over the hill to where she was yipping, and then he looked at his GPS collar, and she was back to the right, kind of angling up the hill, like maybe 100 yards up that way. So he called for her, nothing. So we went hiking up there. She was laying under a log. It was hot. She was panting, and Mike was worried about her. Gave her some water. He said, there's blood on her. I wonder if she jumped that buck. Or I said, man, if she would have jumped that buck, it was thick in her. I said, we would have hurt her. I said, maybe she got with a coon. And she didn't want to stand up. She'd stand up, she'd fall back down. He was worried. I'm like, oh man, this guy's dog's gonna die. This is gonna be a terrible story. I'm like, I wounded. Oh, I guess it's terrible. But gave her some water. I said, Mike, is that where that deer was laying? He said, I don't know. Blood on her face and that. Here, we come to figure out that deer was laying there, and she did not want to leave that spot. She was under that log, and he kind of reached in to grab her. She'd come out, and then she'd go back in and lay down, like saying, Dad, this is where I'm doing my job here. I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Here. So she got some water in her, and we went down the hill 30 yards and to the right, and she found another bed, and she was eating the dirt. This is before we got there. And she was eating the dirt and pawing at the ground, and then she went up to the bed under the log where we found her, and I think she was just kind of dried out from eating all the dirt, we figured, but she was okay. So yeah, that bed that she was eating the dirt in, there was another bed maybe 10 yards from there, and then the deer was up the hill like 20 yards. So when we were down listening for her yipping, she was, I don't know why maybe she ran another deer, or who knows, but she had already found that deer, or and was laying, like hanging out up there,
Yeah.
And so and it died that night, you know what I mean? It was all rigor mortis up, stiff as a board, but so I was lucky to find it. I'm not happy with my shot, I mean, and it's been a long time since I've had something like that happen, and you can't worry about it, just practice and do better, for the animal and yourself. But it's hunting, it's part of life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do your best, but it happens. So
I've been on 3 tracks this year that ended poorly. So,
oh man,
luckily none of them were mine, but they were buddies and my wife. So,
oh man, it happens though. I
mean, yeah,
it's a part of life, you know what I mean? But you think about the deer that not or getting eaten by live, but by coyotes or predators, and you're doing your best to humanely kill them, but
Yeah,
so that was it.
Getting hit by a car and starving to death.
Yeah,
just something
I know
like
the first time I hit a deer with my car, I felt it was January. There's people that don't like hunters and stuff like that, but I remember it was January, or it was like February. And I hit this big old doe, and I know she's pregnant, and I nailed her. She got up and ran, and I'm like, I'm going home. I'm like, I felt so bad for the deer. Like I said, I need to go back and shoot that thing or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like, but people, people that are like anti-hunters, they'll hit a deer and they feel bad. But what action are you taking? Oh, you're just going to go home.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm worried about putting him out of his misery. You know what I'm
saying? Right.
But
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, I saw a deer get hit last night. I actually went. I don't have a buck tag anymore in Indiana, and I just went turkey hunting just to go do something. It's fall turkey season here.
Yeah.
And I of course the turkey season legal light is sunset, so I had a little time driving home. It was light out, and there's deer everywhere. And the car in front of me smoked a doe. I mean, the doe didn't live, but dude, I was shocked at how depressed that made me for a little while. I was like, God, man, like I didn't want to watch that because it hit and it flew in the air and spun in circles, and I'm like,
yeah, that it kind of ruins your evening. And then my buddy Jason, we were hunting in PA last weekend, the weekend before his first day, and in the morning, everybody goes there stand, and I text him, see any? He's like, I got one. Like, what? It's barely daylight. Hit a doe with the car,
Oh man, yeah.
And then later that evening, he was hunting, and on the way out, he almost hit a big buck. He's like, "Holy shit, man!
Yeah,
what's going on?" So
that's something. As I get older, I have a harder time shooting does now.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, I'll still shoot one if I need the meat and stuff, but it's like, man,
that's crazy. Even if you're young, it's like,
I
kill
ruthless.
Everything I could find.
Yeah.
Coon, whatever I'm hunting, deer, rabbits. I love rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, turkey.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. And then you get older, it's how you change. You know what I mean? It's weird.
It is. I don't know what it is. I guess it's maturity, but I feel you though. I know what you mean. I was going to go back to your buck, Johnny, and I think what you did differently that a lot of people maybe wouldn't have in that scenario, including myself, like something I need to learn to be more patient. And you kind of almost sound like you almost were doing an observation sit that first night to some kind of extent, right?
Yeah, and I said, that deer's there. It's hot. I just wanted to get a kill under my belt, and so I said, this is as close as we can't go any further. Let's just sit here, and maybe they'll come up this way, and let our wind go. It was going in that cut, but like I said, it was steep to where I know they weren't bedding. Then further out, it kind of got like gradual to where that's where they were bedding in that cut. So I said, maybe they'll work this, because last year they were working up toward me, coming out of that cut and going up the hill. I think there was some, 700 yards. There was a farmer's field on private, and I think they would kind of go up that hill past me, like the ridge. It kind of was not a level ridge. It went like downhill, this ridge, So I think they were heading, and there was a lot of trails going up toward that, and they were like, the does would parade, then the small bucks, then they would come out of that cut and they just work their way up that ridge. I said, well, maybe that's the same thing this year. They're going to work, maybe they'll feed on oaks or whatever, and they'll head up that way. So we did hang back. Wind was good, but it's like, hey, we got the next 2 days to hunt here. Let's hang back. Let's not ruin it, and let our wind go in the cut or on that steep hillside. And it was like, and I think honestly, the one buck fed under the oak tree, hit that oak tree, and then he went into that gradual hillside. We got him on film, and he plopped down. So the sun was fading, and I feel like that's the heavy duty food source at oak, and they might. And I remember looking, the trails weren't as heavy this year going up that hill toward that field. Like that was their only food source last year, going maybe out to that farmer's field at night. But I had them at 4 a.m., 2 a.m. They might just hang out there. There's water down low and just browsing, to where they're not even really going up to that farmer's field and stuff like that. But yeah, kind of like an observation. I said, you know what? Oh, and the next day was east wind, but it was calling for a southeast. And really, if we sat where I wanted to when I killed a deer, it might have been blowing down in that gradual.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't perpendicular to the ridge kind of per se, but no deer come out of there anyways. I said, this is it. It's time to this 80-degree weather, and he's on that steeper hillside down by the creek. So yeah, it was kind of like an observation sit, and then we moved in, and like I said, it was like I was hyperventilating. This deer's coming, like before. But it was neat going back. Like I said, I hunted there 25 years ago, and there's actually I'm allowed to buck with a bow in West Virginia, and that other deer is there, and I haven't checked my cameras. He probably another 10, so maybe I'll have to get down there and try to take another one.
There you go.
But yeah.
No, that's a cool story. That's you seem like you learned, like you really dissected that spot, and you learned a lot too. Like you learned that they were kind of bedding in a different spot than you thought they were, and then
yeah, that was something I did not expect, and like you said, just hanging back. I said, let's just get in the area. I'm like, none of these deer. I'm like, this is perfect. And then I'm like, I like these. And then I do, like this year, I'm starting to like these 78, 80-degree days, because these deer, and he moves slow, but he's close to his food source. He's close to water or dew or something on a, to where, and then you figure this is the time they need to fatten up. And if it's that hot, they're going to do a lot of feeding through the night into the morning, and them hot times a day, noon, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not saying he ain't going to feed, but he's going to be close to his food. And I told Harry, I said, man, I had him at noon. That was back in September under his tree. I said, I wonder if he hit this tree at noon. And I told him on camera, I said, I wonder if he hit this tree at noon, went over the hill. I said, it's about 5.5 hours. I said, his belly's going to be growling. I said,
yeah,
it's about time to come back up, and boom, there he is. But they move slow. It's so hot, but he knows he has to feed. This is peak. The way like it's designed life, it's time to harvest right now. October, late September. It's ripe. Fruit, just how it's intended, and so that was so yeah, it all worked out. We hung back and saw them and moved in, and
a couple other things before we may answer some questions too to wrap the show up from everybody. But when we were talking at the Mobile Hunter Expo, you were going to use a saddle this year. Did you kill that thing out of your saddle?
Yeah, I did. I got the Timber Ninja saddle.
Was that the first saddle buck you've ever killed?
Hey, I was asking Harry, how do you work this thing? And ropes. But he makes a big platform, and that was my whole MO this year, is to like use it, and I still am using it, and like standing. I didn't shoot in the saddle. I'm standing up on a platform, and I'll
gotcha.
lean back and sit in it's like a 2-panel. I'll sit down, but I'll stand up on it. If that deer's coming, I'm standing on that platform.
How big is it?
I think it's 14 by, maybe 12 or something like that. Which that's why I wasn't too worried about. I mean, I tried it once earlier in the summer with bow, but I forgot. But then I didn't mind being in it because I was still stand hunting.
Yeah.
Like which, so I like it. It's a lot more
smaller,
small, lighter, lightweight. So so it's cool. I'm happy with it. I'm gonna keep with it.
I've been using a saddle this year, and I use a saddle. I've killed a lot of deer out of a saddle, but the last few years I've just been hunting with a B stand. But like things have in the last few years with saddle hunting, man, they've come a long way from what I was using like even 5 or 6 years ago. Like there was nothing out there back then, hardly nothing that was real good,
Yeah.
And I use a like I went out the other night to shoot a doe with my longbow, and I like to use a saddle on my longbow because there's too much crap in front of me with that long bow, you know. But I just to me right now, like I just keep grabbing the saddle because I'm like, oh, this little thing I can just like it's just in my pack and I don't have to like do. It's just it's a little easier walking through the. That's the only reason that I'm stuck on it right now is because I'm like, oh, this thing is just kind of easy to walk around the woods with it, you know.
It is. You carry a couple sticks to get in a tree, but even Jason from Timber Ninja, he longbow hunter, stick bow hunter, and he hunt a long time, a lot of times with a stand and a saddle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so he made the bigger platform, but like even now I'll hang a stand. I'll probably have to check out them beast stands because I still use them, you know.
Yeah.
There's certain times when you want to sit down, they're not heavy, and then you throw
No.
a stand up, but just use the saddle as your safety restraint. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like
Yep.
it's a
Yep.
no-brainer, really. Just keep it on, even if you got a lock on, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's what my dad does. He uses a B stand with a saddle,
Mm-hmm.
and then if he kind of gets tired of or just wants to do something different, he'll kind of sit in his saddle or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it makes
so
sense.
I'm
You turn around, sit down.
yeah,
You know.
yep, yeah, and you're right. The B stand weighs whatever 6.8 pounds. It's like, come on,
Yeah, yeah.
it's pretty light.
I'm used to carrying around the old Summit or the Loggies
Yeah,
or whatever they were. My
right.
buddy sent me a picture the other day. He's an older fella, and I sent him a picture. I was like, of this platform, me in the saddle. He sent me a picture of this. I don't know if it was a catwalk or something up in a tree with railings and shit. Some climber he had from like 2000. I'm like, what the hell are you using, Dave? You know what I
It's
mean?
probably
Like
it's
what,
probably one of
man?
them. It reminds me of the way you're describing it. One of them my dad used to have one. I moved it the other day. It weighs 50 pounds, I think, but
Yeah.
what the heck was it? Tree Lounge is what it was
Oh, I
called.
have one of those. Yeah, he
You
didn't have
did?
that. Oh, yeah, I had the powder coat finish one, boy. I still got it.
Woo!
I carried that thing right for one. I'd go way back in the woods a mile. I'd carry that thing back here. You know,
Yep.
back in the day, it did.
Take
But
a nap back there in that thing.
oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I still have that thing actually.
There's two of them in my barn right now. My uncle's and my dad's are in my
Margaret,
barn.
Margaret's the one. She had the video. Do you remember that?
No, were they climbing telephone poles or something,
Yeah,
or
he was
like
climbing.
metal?
His wife's name was Margaret on Moonshine Island. That's where the videos. She would put her up in that thing, and she was like, every time he killed a deer, she got crazy, like, I got it. Like she was shooting these monster bucks, you know. But he would film her. I remember that good old days. We watched that, Margaret. You know.
I just know I put it up in a tree this summer just to like mess with it.
Yeah, yeah.
And dude, those things are kind of sketchy to me. Like you're standing, you stand like 6 feet off the
Oh,
tree,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then it's just like this little thin aluminum bar that's holding you up there.
I know. You never think about that till now. You're right. I was going up in a tree. It's like 40 feet,
Yeah,
sleeping.
yeah. Uh,
Days, man.
and I put it up and I stand. I'm like, I just had it on the tree. I didn't climb it or anything. And I was
Yeah.
like, God dang, you stood on this thing like this, and
I know. Yeah. It's a couple little nuts, this wing bolts hanging. You know what I mean? A couple
yeah.
little.
The platform is just a piece of plywood
Yeah.
you stood on.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
It was funny though. But I think back in the day, that was like the cat. That was a nice one, you know.
Oh yeah. I had to, like I said, I had the powder coat finish one. Boy, I was something else, man.
Yeah. There's something else I was going to ask you about, but I may think of it here while we're answering some questions. We'll answer a few questions and let Johnny get to sleep and head back to camp. All right. Mike had a question. Mike says, in the hills, what else are deer eating other than acorns, assuming ag fields aren't an option?
Browse. A lot of times, like I said, if the acorns aren't there, I'm not there. Um, there are some deer that live up in there full time, but they'll be far and few between. You get into late season, January. In a lot of these states, you're allowed to bait, like West Virginia, Ohio, on private land, you're allowed to bait. So you're going to set up on someone's bait pile, you know, on private somewhere. I mean, even they might be bedding up in the public, they know where they're going at night to get their food. So that literally vacuums a lot of deer out of the woods when people are putting bait. Then I find a lot of baits on public, anyways. Um, but it depends. Like, there's different parts, different states. Like here where I'm at in Ohio, it's pretty much all hardwoods. I've seen, and I've hunted a few times when there was no um, acorns. I've seen them eat just like brown grass, maple leaves. Um, you can find some honeysuckle, something green, but usually up in these hills, there's not much. I know back home in PA and northern PA now, there's a lot of green stuff. You get into November, they're eating ferns, fern bulbs. Um, tea berry grows low to the ground. There's still some briars if you can, like even in Ohio and other states, if you can find some cuts, browse, buds, but it's all, I will move if there is no, like in Ohio, like the years that there aren't acorns, I have a tough time, or I won't even come here. I'll just go to another state, just for that
Mm-hmm.
reason. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Usually you find some, but there are times where there's none. But back home, like blackberry briars are big back home, PA. Maple leaves are right now the sugars in the leaves. They're going to eat those a lot. Um, what else? I'm drawing a blank, but just find them. If you can't find, look for some cuts. Um, but yeah, states are all different as to what they eat.
Yep.
But there's got to be some type of food to support deer. If there could be very little amounts of food, and there's going to be very little amounts of deer. But like I said, I run into a lot where they'll find, whether it's West Virginia or Ohio, where there are a lot of bait. They'll
Mm-hmm.
vacuum deer out of the woods pretty good.
Yep. All right. Brad, which is my buddy Global, who I was making fun of him for making mock scrapes, but he asked Steep East Johnny, is that where they were bedded on your buck? Steep East slopes?
Yeah, northeast, so it'd be like southeast. That's where that deer, yep, was bedded. It was steep, and I can see on Spartan Forge on the slope where you have the image of the different degree of slope. You could see there was a whiter haze there that signified a bench. I think I posted on Instagram today about it, or I sent it to Bill for Spartan Forge, to where it was steep, and then there was just that slight bench, and then steep again, maybe 100 feet down to a creek that paralleled that ridge. It was really steep. I've never seen deer come up out of there, so it was shady, some bigger mature trees, and I think with the cut, the canopy was thin, and the sun was just heating that up.
Yep.
Like a traditional north slope shaded, kind of, that's how it was. East southeast, but I learned something. Yeah, it was pretty wild. They want to get out of that heat.
Yep. I remembered what I was going to ask you. You keep mentioning you mentioned trail cameras a few times. Do you run a lot of trail cameras, and kind of how do you utilize them for the most part?
So yeah, I've run about 40. I think I want to know where deer are. So that's where I put cameras. I try to get my summer scouting in by September. I want to rape the woods. I want to go everywhere. I want to see everything. But a lot of these places now that I'm older, I've been there already, and I just go to the like creme de la creme. Like I know where I need to go and take inventory, get my cameras out. Inventory areas where just maybe the nighttime and know what they are, or even get cameras where I think they're going to bed. So I have enough cameras in areas that I could check. Maybe when you get into hunting season, end of September, October, I could check like easily with the right wind, the heat of the day, in some open woods or whatever. I ask myself when I go to check cameras, where is this animal now, right now, while I'm checking this? And because you don't want to bump them, you get out of September and October, I don't want to bump these deer. So basically, I put cameras where I want to know deer are, and I asked myself, when can I go get them? So last night we were in the woods till 11 o'clock because I was getting cameras. It was a kind of a south slope. No, it was which way is that ridge? East facing ridge. So yeah, kind of like a south slope. It was white oaks. I knew they were falling, and we can only come in from the west, the public parking, and you go in there during the day, and your wind's just blowing all across there. So I said, hey, we just need to buck up. We hunted till dark, and we drove 40 minutes to another piece of public, and we were in the woods till 11 o'clock, a little almost 11:30, getting those cameras. So I put cameras where I want to know deer are, and then I decide when I can get them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I can't get them till 11 o'clock at night, I'll go get it. Or if it's hot, middle of the day, it's hot, I can, and maybe people talk about like satellite cameras or like not in the core area. Like I don't tell them in my brain, I'm not saying I'm doing this, putting these cameras that I could check at a certain, I put enough of them out there. Then there's going to be some that are in where he's bedding, and there's going to be some where, he's out scraping at night or feeding at night or, something like that. But I just kind of I want to know as much as possible, and you combine that with e-scouting on Spartan Forge and intimately know this land. And like, I even test myself going through the woods at night with just a little headlamp. I mean, a mile in the woods, and I don't look at my phone just as I could feel myself through the woods, like kind of know after hunting these areas and being in there and dropping cameras, and that's another thing. 30 years in the woods, man, you gain a lot of knowledge of different areas or just deer in general to where you could, and I kind of test myself going through the forest like a deer would with just my headlamp and see how far I can go before I'm off track. You know what I mean? Like just know that land, like that deer don't have a headlight. He's just feeling his way through the woods. He's sensing, okay, I walked and I even do it. Okay. A lot of times leaving my stand, like, okay, I know I'll walk this elevation line for a while. And I don't know, it's 5 minutes more instinctual. Okay, now I need to angle up. And you just naturally, you just do it. You just move through the woods.
Mm-hmm.
But I just run enough cameras, oaks, food source, grapes, near bedding. A lot of these areas, I don't even know. I mean, I get to little, like up, some of these bigger woods, in PA, like Bo's dad, Joe Martonic, said he's 50 years old, real successful. He said, I don't know where these deer bed. So don't, feel bad. I don't, me, myself too, in these huge areas that are vast and browsers, that's all that's there and flat, not much topo. I start talking about just finding some safe areas maybe, but that's a whole nother subject. But you don't always know where they're bedding. So maybe nighttime. And I've been finding myself lately, now that I'm older, hunting closer to roads. They want to know, and I tell people they want to know where their danger is coming from. They want to be ready for it. But so yeah.
I was just curious. It's always a hot topic is trail cameras and how you use them. Do you use mostly like regular SD card cameras, or do you have a fleet of cell cameras too?
No, I got 3 cell cameras and 2 of them are broken. So that's my cell camera. So the one we went last night at 11 o'clock at night. So that's where I had a cell camera. It was a 50-minute walk, 6 hours from my house. So it's like normal. That's why I'm going to put a cell camera. It don't work. And I had Harry update the firmware and all that shit. I'm not, tech guy. We had it all ready. We put it out 2 weeks ago, took pictures, and it quit.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, I use them as another tool, but it's not a crutch. I don't want to hunt that way to know where that animal is. That's half the battle is, okay, trail cameras are there, and we're using them. But man, I don't want to know everything.
Yeah.
That's half the battle is you learning, we use trail cameras, but man, I definitely don't depend on them. Like I said, I got 1 out, 2 that are broke. And, and even tonight, talking about that deer, I had that one camera lower and in black oaks, and like I moved it up the hill and them scrapes were cleaned out and I threw it up and it's like, we're hunting there tonight. I know where this deer. I haven't, I don't, like old school, I don't really need to, because there's times I've depended on them a little bit. But let your instincts take over, get inventory, and just hunt. Go back to hunting.
Yep.
And not worrying about them cameras, because sit in your stand, and there's times I have 4 or 5 like up in PA. I had 5 cameras up and down this edge, 4 or 5 cameras. I'm talking 400-yard stretch, this mountainside, this south slope, where they were browsing in this open area that they sprayed this herbicide spray, and browsers come up, and then they were going into the forest and bedding, and I had them 4 or 5 cameras there, and the one evening we hunted there, we seen a 3 buck. And I didn't have them. I put them 4 or 5 cameras out that night. I had 2 there, but I put the other 2 or 3 cameras out, and the 3 or 4 buck we seen they didn't walk in front of any of them cameras. You know what I mean? So whatever you're seeing on your cameras, that's only a 40% of what's there. 20,
right?
You know what I'm saying? My opinion. So if you're seeing a buck, if you got a buck on camera 3 times in a week, he's probably living right there. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's not going to walk in front of your camera every day, or you know what I mean? Especially early in the season, October, and that he's there a couple times. He's there,
Yep.
So.
Yep. All right, here. Let's see. Zeke, members only live stream from the delivery room. That probably is not going to happen, Zeke. We're having a baby Monday, Johnny.
How are you?
Yep.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
That's cool.
It's coming quick.
How many kids you have, Josh?
I just got one. Got one boy, and we're having another boy.
Nice.
So,
yeah. A couple deer hunters.
Yep. If they want to be, that's I'm going to try not to be too pushy about it, as best I can, at least.
And just show them the ropes and let them go.
Yeah. Well, we've been on here long enough, Johnny. I was going to try to keep you an hour, and it's been an hour and 2 minutes now. So, thanks for getting on here, man. It's good talking to you.
Yeah, Josh, it was great talking, man. It's been a while, but
I need to get out east and hunt a little bit with you one of these years.
Yeah. Let me know. Maybe when it might be when your kids are older. We'll be golden gray.
Yeah, they can wait till they get big and strong, and they can just have them drag them things out of the mountains over there.
Yeah, it's nice. And then you get older, you can't hear, you can't see, so you got some youngsters. Get them in a tree, listen. You put that camera up, and you just kind of like your caddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. For sure. So, everybody, thanks for getting on tonight, and we will see you next week on the live stream. See you guys.